And Alice ISD is reporting 11 positive cases of the coronavirus. This as the school year for the Coyotes is scheduled to begin remotely tomorrow morning. It was just last week the district tested 163 students and staff for COVID-19. Of those samples taken, 11 came back positive, 50 samples still pending. Anyone that tested positive had been, of course, notified, and obviously out of privacy, Alice ISD cannot release the names of any individuals or details. The district will also be conducting contact tracing to notify anyone who may have come into close contact with a positive patient. And public schools in Nueces County are set to begin in-person classes tomorrow. It was just last Friday we first told you about these stats coming down from Corpus Christi ISD showing 108 employees with CCISD had tested positive for the coronavirus since June. We also have learned that at least 3 CCISD students have tested positive. However, it is important to note here that the health district does not believe any of the cases were contracted while at school. And the president of our local American Federation of Teachers Union believes that upwards of 150 teachers have decided to not return to the classroom because of the face-to-face class instruction that begins tomorrow. Nancy Vera tells 3 News that some of those teachers have taken FMLA while others have decided to resign or simply retire early. She and her union members are now in favor of students returning to the classroom.
Well, resigned, gone on FMLA, or have had nervous breakdowns. I would say a total of about 100 to 150.
Now we understand that CCISD Superintendent Dr. Roland Hernandez will be greeting students tomorrow morning outside of Luther Jones Elementary beginning at 7:30, and then we'll head over to Adkins Middle School at 8:30 to visit with students and their parents. Texas school districts will begin reporting cases of COVID-19 to the state tomorrow. Administration is supposed to provide the Texas Education Agency with the numbers of positive cases since the start of the academic year. The Texas Department of State Health Services will publish cases by district at the end of this month. Districts will only have to report cases of COVID-19 that occurred on campus, not off campus.